here today with Katrina, or is it Katarina?
Katarina.
Katarina, and she is the founder director of Rising Angels, and she has a lot of things that she would like to say to you guys today to educate you and me on this really horrible problem that we are dealing with today, and just to educate all of you guys and to open your eyes on all of these things and to help avoid these problems or help your daughter or your friend or any victims that you guys might have in your lives to get out of this horrible situation that she has dealt with herself, and she has her own experiences that she would like to share with us today. So without further ado, I just wanted to start off with asking you, like, what's your background, what's your personal experience, what's your story, so that people can kind of like see where you're coming from.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for me, I started being abused at 2 years old. And that was sexual abuse that continued over many years. And then a friend of the family started sexually abusing me in amongst the abuse that was already happening. And I think for me, something inside my brain just really believed that's how men were, is that they were violent, and if you didn't comply to what they wanted, that they would just take it. And that's kind of the mindset that I grew up with. So when my parents divorced, I went wild. I was looking for that father figure. You know, my father had moved on, he had a wife, he had another stepchild, and I had that really big daddy hole in my heart. And I knew how to get attention sexually. So I used that. So by the time I was 12 years old, I was having sex with men twice my age. All of the men I was getting involved with were physically and sexually abusive. But that was normal. That was normal. So 14, I ended up pregnant. Thought it would be like house. This would be something great, but I didn't have the skills to be a mother. I was too young. And my own mother had kind of checked out. You know, she got into a depression when her and my father divorced, and she was just not available for me. So I didn't learn the skills that a teenager should learn, like, you know, life skills. I didn't know how to cook and clean properly or even take care of myself. So when I had this baby, she was just like in my way of what I wanted to do, which was party and drink and all that stuff. So I gave her to my mom. Maybe not the best person at that time, but I didn't want to see her go in the system. So I just continued on my way, and at 17 years old, I met a very abusive man, and we got married. And I probably married him because I figured this is what it was all about anyways, and I liked him better than the rest, so I married him. And he would go in and out of jail all the time. So he was doing, you know, robberies and armed robberies and beating people up. And so he was in and out of prison all the time. And every time he would go to prison, he would have whoever was his flavor friend of the month kind of keep an eye on me, make sure I was being the good wife, get jail visits, you know. That person would take me grocery shopping or do that kind of stuff. And by this point, I had had a second child with my husband. So the last time my husband went to jail, he was in there, and his friend, he got to kind of, again, keep an eye on me, take me for jail visits, help me with groceries. But this guy was a decent guy. And I guess being away from the abuse from my husband this time, I realized I didn't want to be physically abused anymore. So I kind of told my husband that our marriage was over unless he could get help. And he said, okay, I'll get help, I'll do this, I'll do that. And I said, okay, then I'll wait. He ended up getting moved to a halfway house, and getting moved into that halfway house gave him freedom. So that's kind of, you know, a place that you go when you're in between getting out of jail before you go back into society to kind of, you know, get you used to it again. And instead of looking for work, he would be threatening me at my house, at my mother's house, that kind of stuff. And what ended up happening in a kind of a faster story is the guy who was kind of keeping an eye on me while my husband was in jail killed him. And he killed him and took me with him the next day to bury the body unknowingly.
Oh my gosh.
And so the next 3 years after that, this guy moved in with me. He held me and my family hostage. We were too scared to go to the police. If I thought my husband was physically violent, this guy was crazy. Like, he would burn me with cigarettes, he would whip me, he raped my mother. It was just crazy. But through that, he wanted me to deter the police. And in order to do that, he wanted me to file for divorce, get a restraining order against my husband, even though he was dead, and join a women's support group for abused women. All three I did. And in this women's support group, there was a woman in there who was different than us. She was, you know, blonde and dressing really scandalously. And, you know, I found out that she was in the sex industry. And she ran a brothel, and she offered me a job. And I remember thinking, when she told me, you know, you're going to have sex with men for money, I thought, if I could save money, I could escape the situation that I was in. So I agreed to it. And I went and I did this sex work, and it kind of just was the catalyst to everything. I spent the next 15 years addicted to some really hard drugs and having pimps, working in parlors, strip clubs, out of apartments, out of hotels, out of my car. And in the process of this, I met a pimp, and we fell in love, or so I thought. He sold me the dream, which these guys do, you know, they offer you the world. And I fell for it hook, line, and sinker, and ended up having 2 more children with him, and then found out he was raping my firstborn daughter, who was 14 at the time. So it was just this whirlwind of crap, and I didn't know how to get out. And it just continued for another few years before I finally, it was a customer who offered me an out. This customer seen me different, I guess, than the other girls, and would say, you don't belong here, and we emotionally became involved. And he offered me an out, and I was at such a place in myself that I was going to kill myself. I couldn't handle it anymore. And I took his offer and I left. And for the next 3 years, he took care of me. And I thought that I would get out of this business and I would become something and I would be able to go get a job, and I couldn't. I didn't realize the damage until I got out. All the PTSD, the drug addiction, it just controls you. It consumes every piece of you. So I wanted to start speaking and telling my story so that people would understand the reality of what this does to a person. And 3 years later, this guy left me, and I had nothing, and I was going back to the business. And it was, my daughter was actually in a church, and her youth leaders offered to help me, and I took the help, and we've been running ever since with it, and started Rising Angels, and have been out there mentoring women and helping women and educating and doing front lines, and that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah, wow, that's like an insane story, like just insane. Like, good for you for being able to get out of that.
Thank you.
Because that's like, I mean, that's like rock bottom.
Yeah, it was, you know, I had thought, you know, over the years of, you know, I became a cutter, and then I started tattooing myself to hide the scars, and, you know, crack addictions and opioid addictions, and, you know, having these babies, and it was just, I don't know, there was something in me that couldn't give up. Even though I wanted to, I couldn't. And I think maybe it was my kids. You know, even though I wasn't a good mother, which I wasn't, I was so unemotionally unavailable, sorry. And, you know, my kids were used to seeing drunken stone mommy, and mommy bringing clients home, and watching all the violence. So I wasn't a good mom. But somewhere inside, I knew I could be. So it just kind of kept me going.
Wow. It's such a good thing to hear this story, because it just goes to show that no matter how far into it you are, and no matter what you're going through, there's always an out. No matter how dark you think it is, because that's really hard stuff. I can't even imagine. It's like so emotional to like hear that stuff. How did your organization of Rising Angels start?
Well, I started advocating the moment I got out. I started, you know, just public speaking and advocating, working for other organizations, volunteering. And I just found that there were not a lot of survivor-led organizations out there. And I think it's so important to have a survivor on board, whether that person's a consultant or whatever.
Definitely.
So I wanted to have my own organization. My dream is to have a transition home. For these women. One day have a big building with like 40 units and be able to help women. But I was like, I need to do something. And so we started Rising Angels. So the people who gave me the money to get first and last to help me out became my mentors. So they're like my parents now. So they're part of my board of directors, and we got a great board of directors going, and we were just like, we're gonna do this. So that's how Rising Angels started. I kind of had a dream, and people helped me make it come true.
Yeah. So you kind of just said what your goal is, but what is your mission?
So our mission is to help women escape the sex trade. We also want to bring, education and awareness around this. Parents, giving parents the tips of what to look for. We run a parents group every second Wednesday. So we have a support group for parents or anybody who's dealing with somebody who's been trafficked. And just to hear these parents talk about, I didn't see the signs, I would come home and my lingerie drawer was all messed up, like she had been in there looking for lingerie, or she would get somebody to pick her up down the street, or she was going to school but not, like, missing classes, and her whole attitude and behavior started changing. So hearing those mothers were things that I never even thought of. So it's been amazing. I mean, we've written a training manual for frontline workers, and we go around and we train. It's a 6-hour to 8-hour training day for all front lines to understand the mindset of a woman. So it's not just human trafficking 101, it's getting into her brain. Why is she so defiant? Why doesn't she come out just like that? People think, well, there's the help there, she should just get out. It's the mental manipulation that's happened to you, right? So I think for me, realizing how dark this was and how far gone I thought I was, it gave me the motivation to be like you said, nobody is too far gone. There is help out there. And for me, there wasn't any of this. There was no organizations that I knew of. There wasn't anything that I knew along those 15 years to get help. So I wanted to be one of those people that women could come to. Yeah,
that's awesome. So just going off of what you said, the signs and the symptoms to be looking for if you're a parent or if you're a friend or something like that those are really important things, just to avoid this problem, just in case your kids are dealing with this or whatever. Because I remember you saying that a lot of it starts in school.
It does. So we're seeing a lot of pimps who are getting girls from school now, and then they're sending the girls back in to recruit other girls. So you've got these girls who are 14 and 15 years old, all of a sudden they've got the new iPhone and they're dressing different, they got new clothes, and it's like these pimps are sending them in there and they're glamorizing this for these young girls. And these young girls are like, well, hey, I'm already sexually active in school, so what's the big deal? I might as well get paid for it. And they're not understanding what they're getting lured into. They don't know that there's a pimp at the other end who's taking all of their money, who's beating them up, who's threatening their family. And then just, what this does to you. Even if there was no pimp, just having sex with men, strange men, for money. I mean, it just ruins your whole self-esteem. It eats at your soul, and it takes away any innocence that was there, and you're never going to get that back, ever.
Yeah. How do these girls meet the potential pimp? How do they come interacting with them?
So the biggest thing we see is the boyfriend scenario, or the finesse pimp, and we're seeing a lot of it happen on social media. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, we're seeing even online gamings. These guys are getting girls. So usually what happens is they befriend a girl, and they're older, they start talking to her, they find out all about her life, the emotional connection gets built, and she goes and she meets them. And she thinks that they're starting a relationship. She really believes that they're in this relationship. He's taking her out. He's making her feel like a princess. He's buying her things. He's isolating her from her family. If there's issues, he'll be like, it's okay, baby, stay with me. I can help you. And then there's a few different scenarios. So he'll either say, we could have that dream a lot faster, that house, and we could have kids and get married if you would just have sex with a couple of my friends for money. And she'll do it because she thinks if he's okay with it, it's not such a bad thing, and we could do this. I'm doing this for us. We've seen that scenario happen. We've also seen the scenario of the befriendment from these guys, and the girls will talk to them for a couple of weeks on Facebook or social media and think, they're friends. Like now in our world, it's not like kids are going out and hanging out with each other all the time now and meeting people. They're doing it through media, right? And so you think they're your friend after a couple of weeks, and then she goes and she meets them, and it turns out to be him and a few friends, and they rape her, and they videotape it, and then they threaten to put it online. So we see a blackmail happening with these girls. But more than not, we do see the boyfriend scenario where these girls are convinced this is their boyfriend, and they are just doing this for their relationship, but they're giving him the money. He's like, oh baby, I'm gonna put in an account, we're gonna save, so it's the manipulation. Yeah. And, you know, before we used to always be like, it's vulnerable girls. Girls who, you know, come from broken homes or have issues, daddy issues, but it's not. It's everybody. Yeah. You know, nobody is like safe from this. It's happening to everybody.
Yeah, I think that's a common misconception of like, you just kind of assume that they're coming from like already a dark place, or like already like from like the ghetto or whatever. But like I've seen some articles and stuff where people say like it could just be like the girl next door.
That's right. Yeah.
You know, like a really like good grades, good, you know, it could just be any girl, which is important to.
And we've seen it. We've seen it. We have one girl that we deal with who went to university and was living on, you know, in student housing, and she got lured through this guy who was did landscape, turned out to be a pimp, and lured her, and she came from a really good home, you know, a well-to-do family, and had her life together, and she fell prey to it. So it's, anybody.
Could happen to anyone.
Yes,
yeah. What are the ages most common of these victims?
Average age of entry is 13.
Wow.
13.
So
young. You know, again, that's why education is crucial. That's why we try to get into the schools as young as we possibly can. And every time I go into schools and I speak and I tell my story and I do education, there's students coming up going, that's me, or I think that's my friend, or oh my gosh, you know. So getting to these kids, the sooner the better, to educate them, because 13 years old, you know, your hormones are all over the place, you're not sure, you know, with your identity and all this stuff. So I think you're really at a vulnerable, impressionable place.
So how can we help prevent this problem?
Education.
Yeah.
Education is key. You know, and when I direct it to the boys or the men, it's sitting in that locker room and not having, you know, that talk of like, you know, bashing women, or let's go to the strip joint,
objectifying and stuff. Yeah,
you know, like we're turning 19, woohoo, we're gonna go get some dancers, or let's go buy a hooker, you know, like changing the way you think and changing the conversation. So this is a supply and demand issue. You know, if men weren't buying these women wouldn't be sold.
Yeah.
So I think education is key.
Yeah.
To preventative, for sure.
Yeah. That's huge. And how can we spread awareness? Like, it's obviously like we're doing that now.
Right now,
but
I think it's keeping the conversation going.
Yeah.
It's definitely keeping the conversation going. Sharing, you know, if you're reading articles, sharing them on social media and letting people be aware. Like, we'll see stuff now in airports where they're putting up human trafficking, you know, signs, and we're hoping to get stuff like that into school, like to be aware of, and educating parents and having forums and going out there. So education is the one thing that I think is going to make a difference.
And you have a website and everything?
We do.
Yeah.
So it's www.risingangels.net.
Okay, I will link that in the description below, guys, so definitely go check that out. Is there anything else that you want to say or get across?
I think if you're going to go to the website, I would recommend watching The Dirty Truth. It's a video that we did that I think is the most rawest video out there on sex trafficking and prostitution, so I think you should watch it. I think, I mean, just the fact that you're doing this today is amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. This is huge.
Yeah.
This is huge. So
we do have, you can go to Canada Helps if you want to donate. So donating to Rising Angels helps us to be able to help the women. So we help with, you know, groceries, paying rent, medical bills, clothing, that kind of stuff. And we can't do that on our own, so we do need help. So you can go to Canada Helps, which is linked to our website, the Rising Angels website, if you want to be a one-time donor or even a monthly donor. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay guys, so all of that information will be linked in the description below, so definitely go and check that out. Please like and share this video as much as you can to get the awareness out there. Let your parents know, let your friends know. This is something that we need to talk about, spread awareness, and it's huge, and we can make a difference just by clicking share. So yeah, definitely help us out, you guys, and thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here.
You.
This is huge.
Thank you.
Yeah, so yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So just really quickly, while it's just you and me, I just wanted to kind of shed light on the topic because I want to tell you guys how common it is and how easy it is to get pulled into something like this, especially if you're naive or if you're innocent, like most of you should be when you're in high school or when you're in like middle school or whatever it might be. I had this person in my life who I was seeing who was in a band, and there was this lead singer who was double my age, very, very much older than me when I was only 13, and he took a liking to me, and he would message me on Facebook all the time asking me to meet him at a hotel, and that I didn't have to do anything but show him myself to him, and he would pay me money for it. And you know what? It never even crossed my mind that this could have been luring me into sex trafficking. Not even like up until when I met Katarina that could have been what it was. I just kind of thought, okay, this is just some sick guy who has some fetish with young girls or whatever, which is very well what it could have been, but that's how easy it is. And like any girl young that needs money or would like some money would think, oh, like I don't have to do anything, it's just a one-time thing, all I have to do is meet with him and he'll give me money. Like that sounds so easy, so simple, but this is how it starts. And a couple years later, he found me on social media on Facebook, and he messaged me through there saying that all I'd have to do was meet him at a mall and he would buy me whatever I wanted. And it's like, there's no catch, there's no nothing, he would just buy me whatever I wanted. And any naive, innocent girl would think, that sounds great, let's go do it. But it's like, once it's all said and done, they're gonna make you feel like you owe them something. They can kidnap you, they can lure you. This is how it starts. I just read an article about my local mall, some guy coming up to this woman's daughter while she was alone in a store, telling her that he would buy her up to $100 worth of stuff. Some creepy guy. And it's like, this is how it starts, you guys. Like, I never thought of it that way until I met Katrina and she told me how it all works and how it all starts. But I'm only realizing now that that is actually what could have happened to me if I had gone along with this guy. Now, I blocked this guy. I should have reported him. Whenever you guys come across men like this, you should report it. It's just that when you're not educated, you don't know the signs and the red flags. But these are the signs, these are the red flags. If you're dealing with something like this, talk to your parents, talk to your local police station, do something about it, report the person, but most importantly, stay away. It might be tempting because that money looks good, but trust me, just stay away from it, just stay away. I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for watching, and yeah, I hope you guys have a great day. Hit that subscribe button if you like me and my channel, and hit the notification bell because I do make videos every week. I love you guys so much. Bye.